Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us here for Freedom at Four. And I am extremely honored to welcome my good friend and one of the swingingest drummers I've ever had the pleasure of playing with, Mr. Jeff Hamilton.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here, Vincent. And it's easy to play with you in the band. You make it so easy. I don't have to think about anything. So, but thank you for that compliment.
Oh, man, as I knew you would, man, you picked an absolutely incredible list of music for us to check out today. So we should dive right into it.
Okay. All right.
First off, you have a beautiful selection by Oscar Peterson. Tell us something about this
Well, growing up, my mother was a church organist, Baptist church organist, and she also gave piano lessons. And a neighbor laid an Oscar Peterson Trio record on me, and it was called The Trio Plays. And I just loved that record, and I memorized it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to play with Oscar Peterson one of these days. And the way to get started is to know all of his material. So this is the album that really got me on that track. At like 10 years old or something, I think I was, and I started playing snare drum lessons at 8 just for 5 years before I could play a drum set. So I was making do with what I had playing to this record with Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen. So it's still one of my favorite Oscar Peterson Trio CDs.
There it is. Beautiful record. This is Fly Me to the Moon from Oscar Peterson Trio, the Trio Play.
So it's contained right there. And it dawned on me years later that the reason that my favorite formats in jazz were piano trio and big band is because Count Basie is what I was listening to and Oscar Peterson. So there was an introduction in both formats, introduction, melody, maybe a send-off or an interlude, a soloist, a shout chorus, maybe trading, maybe not, maybe an interlude, and then the head out and the outro. And so it was easy for me to follow those kind of arrangements and to make a trio sound like it was a big band. That was another thing. And then to hear Ed Thigpen shading and setting up every idea subtly. I mean, you talk about restraint, you know, you're a 10-year-old drummer. Now, how many 10-year-old drummers think about restraint, you know? And I was wanting to play more when I played to these records, but every time I did, it sounded wrong. So I just paid attention to Ed Thigpen and what he did and transcribed what he did. And then there was a record, Clark Terry, Oscar Peterson plus one with Clark Terry. And there's a picture of Ray Brown's hand, and he had his little finger out when he played, and he'd come around the string with his index finger, and this would be the leverage. And I stared at that picture, imagining me lining up quarter notes with Ray Brown. While I was playing to this record, I was staring at the other album cover, you know, imagining, boy, when I get to play with Oscar Peterson, it's going to feel like this.
Right. Man, I mean, it's such a supremely developed orchestral concept within the trio. I mean, right. all of those details, and as you say, you know, Ed Thigpen was my dream band that I never got to make a record with. He was part of. Unfortunately, I just never could line it up before they left us. You know, I agree. Such subtle shading and such perfect and tasty setups of everything that's being done. Man,
Right. A total musician who happens to own a drum set.
Exactly.
What was that?
You know Mr. Thigpen. Did you know him?
Yeah, we were very good friends. Oscar would put his left hand, make a fist, and he'd put his fist down by his left side. And with our trio setup, you know, I could see that. It wasn't like a Bill Evans trio setup. It was the piano in the middle, then the bass at the end of the keyboard, and the drums, the hi-hats right next to the basses. So the bass player and drummer could see Oscar's hand. So when he wanted to go to sticks, he would drop his fist. And so I told Ed this story after I joined Oscar. He said, yeah, we're going to start with Falling in Love with Love, 2-beat brushes. And when you see this, and he dropped his fist down, he looked at me and he goes, wood, meaning pick up the sticks and let's get with it. And Ed started laughing and he said, oh, so now it's just wood. You know, he said, my nickname was Pine. So a certain kind of wood, you know, to get on it. So yeah, Ed and I were very good friends, and we spent a lot of time sitting down with 2 pairs of brushes and just talking about brushes, and just what a master and lovely human being.
I've heard. I never met him, but I've heard. So the very same from everyone.
Well, he would have loved you. You know, he seemed to attract people that were great people around him, and then there was me. But for the most part, I saw you know, Monty Alexander and John Clayton, and I mean all these great people around him. Billy Taylor, Dr. Billy Taylor. He just seemed to attract great people. You know.
Yeah. And such beautiful music, and he was a beautiful human being.
Yeah, true.
We're going to continue on. I mean, that's everything on here is just, you know, that's all I can say about it. You have a selection that was it's one of my absolute favorites to play and to listen to, written by a great mentor of mine, Mr. Frank Foster.
Right.
Tell us a little something about this one.
Well, okay. Blues and Hosses Flat, and it's from the chairman of the board recording. And the Basie band is the first big band recording I remember hearing. My 2 older sisters, who loved big band and jazz and standards, a Great American Songbook, but my oldest sister especially liked the new music that, you know, well, hey, Elvis is coming in. This is kind of some new music, and and the Beach Boys, and and we listened to that in the house on the big stereo, the Montgomery Ward stereo, the size of a Cadillac, And my dad one day said, "I've had enough of this stuff. Come on, bud." So we go out to the discount store, and he finds a Count Basie record for like 49 cents, and this was on it. And I said, "Okay, well, that's it. I love this record." So I started listening to Count Basie so much during that time. And that's pretty much my diet for 2 or 3 years was Oscar Peterson Trio and the Count Basie Orchestra. Then when I got on the band, I subbed just a few months after Mr. Basie passed. And Dennis Wilson, your colleague in trombone, called me because we were on Hamp's band together. He got me on Lionel Hampton's band in 75. He said, "We need somebody in one day. You got to get out here tomorrow." Whoever they had wasn't working out. So I flew out to Kansas City, and we had the opportunity to play that. Byron Stripling was playing lead. And of course, the band was the same with Freddie Green and Eric Dixon and Sonny Cohn. T. Carson was the pianist. That was the only change. And man, when we played this blues, it was like, man, I don't have to do anything. It's just playing itself. I could just go along for the ride. So anyway, that's why I chose this one, because it was, again, listening to the record, learning it, and then being on the bandstand with the people that actually played it. It's like, okay, I can retire now.
Right. Okay. Right. This is Blues in Horse Flat, the Count Basie Orchestra, written by Frank Foster, from the chairman of the board recording.
Now, do you realize that the two pieces that we've played, we've done nothing but smile through the entire tune?
I suspect there's going to be a whole lot of smiling.
That's one of the things that I insist on in the groups that I'm in now, and the people that are around me feel the same ways, man. You got to have that joy of playing this music. So many times, and you have this, your band has this too, but it's like all these people go to school and they analyze, and does the bass player play a little on top of the beat, and does the drummer play? It's like, man, get up there and play some quarter notes and make it work with the people you're playing with, and be happy that you get to play this music. It's a privilege to play this music, which we're finding out the last few months. It's a definite privilege to play this music. So don't take it for granted. And man, you just hear the joy in both of those selections, Vincent.
Man, you certainly do, and you can hear it. You can hear that they love each other and love playing with each other.
That's true. Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to sub on the Basie band for about the same amount of time, for a couple of months or so. And I even the person who I subbed for, I think, just joined our watch party, Clarence Banks, the great.
Hey, Clarence Banks! All right. Yeah, he was in the band. We had a ball. He was a heck of a player, great person. Yeah, thanks for joining, Clarence.
I was able to get in there and mess up all his parts for a couple of months.
Go in and throw the book away.
So I should tell you, they were messing with me, they kind of played the same number of tunes, kind of in rotation a little bit, but they knew them all by memory, and the book in ridiculous shape. This is some of the original music from 30 years ago. The numbers were torn off, it was not in order, it's all over the place, and so they, at the end of every piece that I'd be looking for the music. So Grover Mitchell was leading the band at this point.
Okay.
Would never leave me enough time to shift through the book and get the music. So as soon as we end something, and now we're going to play Whirly Bird. 1, 2, 1. I'm the whole one. I get in about 8 bars later, but I finally get it in front of me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My first night on Woody Herman's band, they played something. I had the book memorized, so I went on, and it was a 4-hour dance. It's supposed to be a 4-hour dance, turned into a 4-hour concert because they sold too many seats then they put them on the dance floor. So it was a concert my first night, and he threw the book at me. I mean, it was a whole concert book, and the last two of the night, I didn't know it because they hadn't recorded it. So I'm playing with one hand, and it's kind of like a steps ahead kind of beat, like da da da. That kind of thing, and I'm trying to play, I'm fishing around for the music with my left hand, and Woody turns around and he leans over and he says, "Don't you have this book memorized yet, pal?" Like the one piece of music I didn't know. And it's like, in other words, forget the music, just make the band feel good, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. So
beautiful, man. That was Blues and House Flat by Count Basie.
If I could say one more thing about that, I always wanted to play with Snooky Young, and him being in this band. And so when we formed the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra, Jeffrey Clayton, one of the co-leaders in the band, John's brother, he was in charge of the personnel. We all had our duties within the leadership. And the first person he called was Snooky Young. Let's start the band there. And man, there's nothing like it. As Sweets Edison said, it's the greatest lead trumpet player of all time, and not because of range, just because of feel for the band, and that goes along with if you're a good jazz improviser, you're going to be a good lead player too. The lead players who don't improvise, I don't really connect with all that well. So the improvisers really playing lead is what makes the band feel like that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one other quick Snooky story. So there's one record I was talking about with Snooky, and we got pretty close, and one of those long trips. I said, so Snooks, Sonny Payne on this one recording, it feels like he might come out of a fill owing the band about a beat and a half. I said, was that hard for you? When that happened? And these older cats, when you've overstepped your boundary. He just sort of tilted his head back like this and leaned back in his chair, and he just looked at me and he goes, "I'll take him." And I said, "Okay." And that was the end of the discussion. Now that's family. You just said, you know, they love each other. You could tell they do, and they play together. They make it work, whatever it needs, whatever the music needs.
Exactly. Make it work. I love
Yeah.
it. Love
In other words, who are you to analyze this stuff?
it. Yeah, I love it. And so you speaking about Woody Herman earlier, that's a perfect segue
Oh,
into
is it that? All right, that's next. Okay. Well, you know, I loved Woody Herman's band too. I got into it a little later, and I would say because I was a huge Buddy Rich wannabe. I thought with all the rudimental snare drum training I had, I really thought, you know, hey, it's possible I can do this and get my own big band and be Buddy Rich. And the more I heard music, it was like, man, I'm leaning toward the Basie band. That's, you know, I don't want to play all those drums and all those arrangements. I just want to play with the band and play great music. And I kind of leaned the other way from the technical approach to drumming. And I'm not taking anything away from Buddy Rich's swinging at all. I'm just saying his band was based on him, and people went to see the solos, you know, and then, oh yeah, there's a big band too, but they went to see Buddy Rich, and I didn't want that the older I got. So I started listening to other bands where, you know, I could play my hot time or whatever it was that felt right, and Woody Herman fit right into that. And I loved the drummers on Woody Herman: Dave Tuff, Don Lemon, Jay Canna, Chuck Flores. I mean, so many great drummers. Ed Soph revolutionized, I think, big band drumming by breaking up the hi-hat a little more, not playing it on 2 and 4 all the time, not feathering the bass drum all the time, although he can and does. But I really think he brought in a new way of playing. And Woody saw that when he heard him in North Texas, said, I want you to come out and do that on my band. And that's what I loved about Woody. Woody was always evolving, and he wasn't afraid. He didn't want to play woodchopper's ball his entire life, although he did, but he wanted to play some other things. So that band really drew me in with all of the four brothers and that period, and later on what Jake did, which is 63 and 64.
right.
And so we've chosen one from that band. That's one of the hottest bands, one of my favorite bands of all time. Sal Nistico plays this tenor solo, and man, hot as a firecracker. I got to play with him on a radio project in Germany with the WDR band, and tribute to Woody and Bill Holman conducting. And man, I'm telling you, man, it's just, you just ride him all the way through the solo. He had some great time, great ideas. And of course, Jay Canna back there just chugging along, one of my favorite people and dear friends, one of the funniest human beings I ever met. And you'll hear the joy in this one too, Vincent.
Yeah, you sure will. This is Sister Sadie, Woody Herman from the record Woody Herman, 1963.
Yeah, that reminds me. I studied with John Von Olen, the Baron, who was on the Woody Herman band and Stan Kenton band. And, and I went in for a lesson one day, and man, all this swinging music was on. It went one right after the other. And I said, man, this is just relentless what you're listening to. He says, well, don't you have a hot tape, baby? And I said, a hot tape? He said, I've made a cassette of like the hottest swinging stuff around, man. That's what you need to do. Just put it on and listen to it all the time. So I started doing it. I got a hot playlist now with, that's on it, as a matter of fact,
Going on mine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that 63-64 band was really something. Bill Chase playing lead and Nat Pierce at the piano, Chuck Anderson on bass, and Phil Wilson, in your section. And man, it was just one of my favorite bands of all time. And I thought, yeah, we got to include a little bit of that. A side story that's not so joyous, when they recorded that 1964 record on Philips, this is around the same time of what we just heard. They had recorded in November of 63, but it came out in 64. So they called it 1964, the record. So after they played it, Jay Canna told me they went in to listen to the playback, and everybody in the booth, the engineer, producer, were all in tears. And After You've Gone is this fast Bill Holman, dun 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 dun. And they thought, what are they crying? Well, it wasn't that bad, And one of them said John Kennedy was just shot, and they had just recorded the song After You've Gone. So it's pretty weird happening, occurrence there. So. Unfortunately, that's what I think of every time I see that cover, but it's still a very happy record. I mean, they got what they wanted on that record, but it just makes it along with history. You this music goes right along with the history.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. What is Bill Chase's arrangement?
This was Nat Pierce, I think. Sister Sadie, yeah, and Don Rader later did some arrangements later on in that band. I don't know if Bill wrote that much. There are a couple of features, and I'm not even sure he wrote his features, but he contributed. But later with his band Chase, he started that jazz rock band, and a lot of that was him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, they're grooving from the downbeat. It just takes you right with it.
Yeah. The other thing Jake always used to say. As a drummer, he always had Boston accent. He said, as a drummer, we catch too much. Just play time for the band. Look in the shout chorus for the one thing that you're going to clobber, and just play time the rest of the time. And he pretty much did that on that. He was chopping wood through the whole thing. That's what it needed. Just keep it hot.
That's beautiful. And see, you don't even realize, man, you're giving me such great segues. You spoke about a Boston accent that goes perfect into the next one on our list, who has a very thick Boston accent or Massachusetts accent, the great Chick Corea.
Oh, I forgot what we had coming next. All right, yeah.
Boston, right. I could just hear Chick, asking when we did a project with him, who did that chat? Who did that?
That's right.
What chat is that? He has this real thick Boston accent.
He sure does. Yeah, he sure does. I included this because I've always loved Brazilian music. I first heard, when I was young, it might have been so long ago, it was Sergio Mendes in Brazil 55. I'm not sure. It seemed like a long time ago. And I immediately fell in love with that. That's during the whole time with Stan Getz and Astor Gilberto and Joao Gilberto. And I really loved it. I think I was Brazilian maybe in a previous life. I don't know. But I've always been drawn to Brazilian music. And so I learned how to play those beats from that record, which was Joao Palma on that record. And then later met some Brazilian drummers, Claudio Sloan. And now I think most of my friends that I'm in touch with now, drummer-wise, are Brazilian. We're in touch quite often. And I've always learned more about that. Well, this particular track I was not fond of. when I first heard it. But again, coming from Buddy Rich, and then I had two roommates who were piano players, and they both loved Chick, and they wanted to do play a group, have a group with this type of music. And I was listening to this, and I'm going, I don't understand this drummer because Chick Corea could have any drummer in the world on this record, but I don't understand what this drummer's doing. He's just sort of splatting and splashing, and he's not really playing any time. And I said, I don't think I want to be in this band. They said, yeah, we want you in the band. You got to learn how to do this. So and it had electric piano. I was totally acoustic. It was like I don't want any amplifier on the bass. I don't. I mean, I was real pain in the neck. And so I started transcribing the drumming on this next record, and it opened the whole world up to Brazilian jazz, of how you can start playing and free up the Brazilian feel and just color and do what he did on this record. And I'm speaking of Airto, who is one of the incredible. Have you gotten to play with him, Vincent?
I have not, but I've heard him,
Okay. Well, I've been waiting to tell him my whole life how much he influenced me. And I went to see Joyce, the great singer, composer, guitarist in LA, and her husband, Tuti Marino. Yeah. And Airto was in the audience. And I went up to him at the end of the night, and he was sort of preoccupied with what was going on. I said, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is like a year ago. I walked up and I said, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to thank you for being such a big influence on showing me how you can play Brazilian music. He goes, okay. And he turned around and walked away. I mean, it was like a Brazilian reunion there. Everybody was there. It's like, oh, okay, I heard you. And then he's gone, So, but he really did. I hope to get to tell him again, because he really opened it up for me. So I want to thank him publicly now with this selection of Chick Corea and You're Everything, and Stanley Clarke and Joe Farrell, and Airto and Flora Purin.
You're Everything. Chick Corea and Return to Forever from the record, recording Light as a Feather.
More happiness.
I hear what you're saying about Ayato's approach. I mean, he plays just enough.
Yeah.
He plays just enough.
Yeah.
But the groove is just it's amazing.
The underlying groove underneath all of that is still ba-dun, ga-dun, da-dun, da-dun, and just keeps the momentum going. But he's just dancing. It's like hot oil on a skillet, just kind of dancing off the top of the surface there.
Right.
So,
right.
I got a funny story about. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
I got to tell you Chick Corea's story. He wrote, when I was on Woody Herman's band in 1977, he wrote a suite for the band, and it was called Suite for Hot Band. We recorded on LP. One side was his suite, and the other side was Steely Dan tunes arranged for big band. Victor Feldman, Tom Scott, Bill Stapleton. A few people arranged things for the Steely Dan music for the second half. Well, Chick rehearsed the band at Berkeley. And so we had a day off. Woody's band pulls into Berkeley. We get into a rehearsal room, and there are all these students trying to see through the window because Chick Corea's in there, And so it was a 3-movement suite, and it was really involved. And I had a couple of experiences with piano players saying, let me show you the beat I'm looking for. Can you get up off the drums? And I went, oh boy, here we go. So Chick walks up and he goes, that's kind of what I'm looking for, but can I show you what I'm looking? Now I didn't know Chick could play drums, so I'm thinking another piano player. Here we go, and I'm 23, So I get up off the drums. I'm standing behind the drums like this. Mark Johnson was the bass player. Vazuti's the lead trumpet. I mean, we had a good band. Joe Lovano, and so they sit down, and he starts playing, and he's like Elvinish, it's like it's starting to really open up, and the band's reacting to him. And I saw exactly what he's talking about, and my mouth hit the floor. It's like my jaw hit the floor. It's like, what? And he says, so that's kind of what I was looking for. And I said, okay, thanks. I took the sticks. I hear from across the room, Lovano said, I'll take him. And I said, me too. Man, he played his butt off. He's an unbelievable drummer, man. He could play,
Man, I agree, man. He did the same thing when we worked with him, and it's just showed, and it just was so knowledgeable and can convey everything so effectively.
Yeah,
that he gets what he wants out of the music. I mean, and the thing I was saying before about them is that they play with such balance. My own personal critique on a lot of bands from the 70s is that when you have a lot of electronic instruments to balance, the acoustic sensibilities of balance get lost, and did get a lot of live, but not with them. When they play really in balance, and even the live videos I've seen of Return to Forever, they play very well in balance, and I love hearing that.
Yeah, very true. Great observation. And while you're telling me that, I'm thinking of the lesson I had with Philly Joe Jones in the mid 70s, and he said he heard me the night before with Monty Alexander and John Clayton, and I said, so what do I need to do? And he says, you need to challenge those guys more. You're just a doormat for them to walk on. And I said, yeah, but Monty's paying me, and it's his band, and I don't want to play too loud. He said, I didn't say anything about playing too loud. I said, give him a nudge once in a while. Let him know you're there. Make him let you in. And I said, okay. And I said, how will I know that it's not too loud? And he says, you got to live by this rule. Every band you're in, on every bandstand, if you can hear everybody in the band, whether it's 16 pieces or 3 or a 75-piece orchestra, if you can hear everybody acoustically, then you're not too loud. And I live by that in every band I'm in. I don't gear my volume to the amplifier. I don't use any monitors in my trio or the big band.
Right.
So, the monitors, you start getting a false sense of the volume, and then you start playing harder and louder. That's why I don't like that spread out trio format, because the drummer's got to have a monitor for the piano, and I want to hear the natural instrument and gauge my playing to that.
Now, I don't know if he's watching, but Phil Shapp would love to hear you say that one more.
He told me to say that. Hey, Phil.
Please say it again. You use no what?
What's that?
It said, say it again for those in the back. You said you use absolutely no monitors in your trio when you play.
Oh yeah, no monitors, no, and a mic on the bass, you know, and play acoustically. If you're playing the right way, you can hear everybody. You know, you're not covering anybody up. So
that's right. Beautiful, beautiful, and that's why you play how you do, of course. Yeah, I do think.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man.
I had good mentors, you know. The people pulled me aside. I had a lead trumpet player in a college band. I had the good fortune of playing in a Earlham College band when I was 15. It was a Quaker college. I guess they didn't have any Quaker jazz drummers. So the band director came over to the high school. He said, "You got any kids that want to be in a big band?" The band director said, "Take this kid out of my hair. He's driving me nuts." You know, so I went over and played in the band, and the senior in college lead trumpet player came over to me at the end of the concert. It was all Buddy Rich charts, so I didn't even open the book. I had everything memorized. You know, they were going, "Wow, this kid's got something together. Don't throw anything else at me." But I had all the Buddy Rich charts down, you know. And nice. So he walked up and he said, "Kid, you sound good for 15, but do you know how many rim shots you're hitting on the snare drum?" And I said, "No." And he said, "About every time you want to bring us in, you hit a rim shot, and it's the loudest thing in the band. It's the highest pitch, and it's the loudest thing in the band. Do you know what that's like? It's like you're screaming at me. I just want to play music with you." And what advice at 15 years old. To this day, I hardly hit a rim shot. I just get a big sound out of the snare drum, but I don't hit a rim shot too often.
Right. Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. So we're going to move on now. We have a great piece by Stan Kenton. And I had never heard before. I was checking this out earlier today, and I wasn't familiar with this. So give us a little background on this.
Okay, well, I left Indiana University. I met John Clayton there. We became best friends immediately, and I knew that I wanted to be out on the road playing. And so Peter Erskine and I were freshmen together the same year, and he left after his first year to go with Stan Kenton. I left after my second year to go in the Tommy Dorsey band with Murray McEachran leading the band, Vincent, you know. And so I had studied with John Von Ohlen to transform from a Buddy Rich wannabe clone to being a musical drummer in a big band. And Von Ohlen had that. He lived in Indianapolis. I saw him play, and I kept bugging him for lessons. And finally he taught me. And I studied with him 8 months, and he totally turned me around, coming from the Mel Lewis style of playing to make the band comfortable and get a big sound when it was needed. And speaking of volume, Mel Lewis told me that he was another dear friend. He said, "I'm single-handedly responsible for making the Stan Kenton band swing, because I followed the Gladiators, Stan Levy and Shelley Mann, and the band played too loud. You can't swing when you play that loud. So my first night, I'm playing as loud as I want to play, and big Stan Kenton strides over from the piano, cups his mouth, and says, 'Hey, Mel.' Mel says, 'What? Do you think you can play any louder?' Mel goes, 'No.' And Stan said, 'Okay, I just thought I'd ask.' And he went back to the piano. Now the band had to come down in volume so they could hear him. Right. And that's when they started doing the 56, the Contemporary Concerts album, and it was swinging, Bill Holman charts, you know. And so Mel said, 'I'm single-handedly responsible.' So Von Ohlen was coming out of Mel Lewis also, and so he taught me more a concept, which you've seen me do, is let the sticks do the work more. You're loose, relaxed, you're not manipulating everything, controlling it, and let the music happen. Be confident in your beat, share it with the band, and invite them into the band. So this is John Von Ohlen on the Stan Kenton band. I think it's 71, and from the Live at Redlands album. And I played this every day after I got the album, because the big sound that John Von Ohlen gave the band. And wait for the fills at the end. Mm-hmm. Oh, written by Willie Maiden.
Got you.
Yeah, an original by Willie Maiden.
Little Minor Blues, live. Stan Kenton and his orchestra live at Redlands University.
Here's some original music that Willie Maiden wrote. You'll hear a saxophone solo here by Twin Davis. You also could hear some trumpet by Warren Gale. This is called Minor Blues.
lot of sound.
It is. You're right, but Kenton got what he wanted on that one.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, Vo had such a big wide beat and a big sound, and Stan just loved him, and he looked like he owned the world. That's why he called him, the Baron. He looked like he was like the king. So nobody messed with him at the drums. He was really a huge influence for me. So. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's amazing. The trumpet solo was great too. All the solos.
I'm thinking maybe Warren Gale was the trumpet soloist. I've forgotten over the years. So
Good enough for Warren Gale.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a trumpet player named Richard Williams who played with Thad and Mel.
Yes.
It reminded me of Richard Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. And wasn't afraid of double time.
Right. Double time. That's him too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That was a Little Minor Blues live from Stan Kenton and his orchestra live at Redlands University. And man, I should have asked you to pick about 10 more.
Well, apparently I'm going to have some time.
I know I have some time to listen to this.
All right.
But you rounded us off with a wonderful piece by Thad Jones that I always love to play, The Big Dipper. Tell us a little something about this.
Well, I became a Mel Lewis fan, like I said earlier, when I was at Indiana University and the band I was in played a lot of Thad Jones. So that was my introduction into it. And then later on when, I don't know, 2 years after that, John Clayton and I were touring with Monty Alexander. We carried a portable turntable with speakers in it, and the turntable that would flip down out of the briefcase, and you play your LPs on it. And everything was location work. So we'd play the back room in Chicago for a month and the Hong Kong bar in LA for 2 weeks. So we just get an apartment and play records all day. And we were huge Thad Jones, Mel Lewis fans. And that's when John and I started talking about, you know what, maybe we should start a big band one of these days. I mean, they did it, and it's kind of this, you're kind of studying Quincy's writing and Duke and Thad, and, maybe we should take a shot at it. So this kind of planted the seed, but we listened to this every day. And in school, I would wake up and play with the headphones on. I'd play to this tune and Jerome Richardson's The Groove Merchant every morning. And then it didn't matter how the rest of the day went. If the geography teacher didn't dig me, that was okay. But I got my morning started with my my jazz mantra, Big Dipper and Groove Merchant. So this is Thad Jones' Big Dipper.
Big Dipper from the album Central Park North.
Ah, ah, yeah. I love that piece so much that, and I have a, you know, a habit of doing big band repertoire with my trio, and on the newest CD, Catch Me If You Can, we end the whole CD like we've ended this session with Big Dipper, and it's always been a challenge to try to do some of the big band material with the trio, and I'm not afraid to try it. Hence the way we started this thing. Oscar Peterson would do those like Sax No In, you know, with Francie Boland, Kenny Clark big band, and he wasn't afraid to tackle the big band thing. So, but you know, as Ray Brown always told me when I worked with him, it was like if you play somebody else's material, make sure you put a new dress on it. So we try to try to put our treatment of the trio on whatever we play. But Big Dipper, I said we got to take a shot at this.
Oh, of course, man. I mean, and it feels good. I mean, it's built in. It's one of those pieces that has it built into it, so you can play it in any format, and it's gonna feel right.
Yeah, that's right.
And the people are playing. If they love music as much as you do, then it's gonna feel right. Oh, that's really beautiful. And I've always dug Mel, man. Mel's looseness, and how they could get that big band, you know, that many musicians to respond to that looseness. That always astounded me how they came together to do that. But, you know, that many senses of time can be problematic. And when they're all following a drummer like Mel Lewis, and they'll say, "Well, okay, you got it. Just show us which way we need to go."
Yeah,
this is an amazing thing. I always loved the way that they had just this cohesion between Mel's, the wideness of Mel's beat, and the way that they would collectively hear the time. It's something.
Right. He told me that he liked to be. I was sitting on a sofa one day, and he had just done a recording with his band. This is after Thad left, and they did Cherry Juice, and it was really fast. Mm-hmm. And he's sitting in his Barca lounger with his thumbs like this, you know, and he got his Elmer Fudd shoes on, and and I'm sitting across on the sofa, and he's just sitting there tapping his foot on the downbeat of every fourth bar, and it's you know, Cherry Juice. Yeah. And I'm over on the sofa, and I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm bouncing and stomping my foot. You know, I look like I'm having a fit over there on the sofa. And I started calming down because I saw Mel wasn't listening to the music that way. And so I put my hands over my chest like this, and I relaxed, and I sat back into the sofa, and I heard the music better. I understood it better instead of getting wrapped up in it. So at the end of it, I said, "How can you sit there like that and not react to the music like that?" He says, "That's what I do on the bandstand. They're all up in the ceiling." He said, "You know, I like to be the oversized stuffed sofa that the band can sit on when they play, not lay on, but sit on." Right. And so that image has stuck in my mind. Both of those, his foot on that downbeat every fourth bar, and the big oversized stuffed sofa. He said, "Then you need to know your beat as a drummer and be confident in it. You got to be happy with your beat. And then if you know your beat, then you can offer it to everybody else in the band. Don't make them come into it, but offer it to them and embrace them with your beat. And if they don't want to come in, it's okay, but you're not forcing them and playing rim shots and crash cymbals. You're inviting the band into the beat."
I love the way you put that. Offer it to them.
Yeah. No, that's Mel. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful, man. Well, I hope everyone understands that you've been offered a extremely swinging set of music by the great Jeff Hamilton this afternoon. That I'm going to post this. I'll write this out and post the playlist on Jazz Houston's website so you can check it out with YouTube links, because everybody should have a chance at this. But this is just a beautiful set of music. I'd like to just thank you again, Jeff, and for joining me and for joining Freedom at 4 and being here and giving us this wonderful music to listen to.
Well, it's my honor. And listen, when you're friends like you that play as great as you do, and a great human being, and we're all in this together to keep this thing going and play the music we love. So anytime somebody like you asks me to do this, I'm on board. So anytime, Vincent, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And for everybody out there, thank y'all for joining us. Join us next week for the great Ted Nash is going to be here with us on Freedom at 4. And then I guess it's a little Alto Madness. We have the great Donald Harrison the week after that on Freedom at 4. So join us. We got a few good ones coming up. And thank you all for joining us now. Next week.
Say hi to Ted for me. I was on his first record.
Were you?
Yeah. Well, it was a 78, but I was on his first record.
Well, thank you so much, man. You have a great rest of the week.
All right. Thank you. You too, Vincent. I look forward to seeing you in person one of these days.
Yeah, sooner than later. Definitely.
All right. Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye.